Ladies and gentlemen, mesdames et messieurs, on va commencer. S'il vous plaît, gagnez vos sièges. Please grab a seat. We are getting started. All right, welcome to Startup Grind. How many? All right, okay. How many of you it's your first time here tonight? Nice, nice. How many times, for everybody else, how many times have you been here tonight? Just scream it out. 2, 3, 4, 5. Since the beginning. Okay, awesome. All right. So welcome to Startup Grind. For the new folks in the room tonight, Startup Grind is a global organization that essentially is there to support the startup community. So it's based in San Francisco, but there's chapters all over the world, and in every single chapter, the mission is to bring the community together at an event where there's food, there's drinks, and there's a founder that typically is not accessible. And the idea is to be able to learn from these famous founders, venture capitalists, media personalities, whoever it is, and to bring together the community, learn from each other, support each other through the grind that takes place in running a startup. So if you're curious, the social media for tonight, the hashtag is just #StartupGrind. So please tweet as much as possible. The handle for our chapter in Montreal is StartupGrindMTL. The more you tweet, the more headquarters notices, so let's make sure that Montreal is #1 tonight. And without further ado, this event would not take place without our sponsors. So I'd like to ask Ernst & Young to come up. Nassim from Ernst & Young, please come up and say a few words about why you guys support this event and why you're here tonight.
Thanks. So I guess I'm Nas, I work at EY. We are very involved with the startup scene. I work in tax incentives, so I'd love to take you guys out to lunch and get to know you guys and see how we can work with you guys. EY has we want to onboard startups like you guys, so we have like reduced rates, we have a great program, so if you want to hear more, I've got 3 of my colleagues back there, 2 in audit, 1 in tax, and myself, so please come and see us and we can chat. Thanks.
Awesome. Sorry. Round of applause for EY. All right, and of course, our lovely legal sponsors, Legal Logic, Jamie from Legal Logic. Round of applause, please.
Thank you, dude. So, why do we sponsor this event, and who are we? This event for us is extremely important. We're lucky to have it, and I think you guys are doing a great job. What do? We do legal services. We live and breathe entrepreneurship. We incorporate your companies for free without any legal fees. You only pay the costs. So we mean it when we say we live and breathe entrepreneurship. We are young, we are hungry, and we want to meet every single one of you because your business is important, and instead of focusing on the legal stuff, let us take care of it. So we're going to be here for now, we're going to be here for the future, and we have Jeff and Lucille from our office who are here for after to just talk about the firm. So thanks for having us, and good job, guys.
Thank you. So you guys have been eating some really incredible food tonight. Who agrees with me? Ooh, all right, awesome. So this food is courtesy of Fresh Mint, and we've got Shara from Fresh Mint to say a few words. They're a startup from Montreal, by the way.
I'm the only sponsor not wearing a tie, so I'm a bit worried about that. I think I should wear a tie next time. Thanks Rami, thanks Roger, thanks Stephanie, and the whole Startup Grind team. You guys have been supporting us from day one. So actually, I think our first time working together was 7 months ago, which is actually in April, which is when we actually launched. So we're a 7-month-old company. Our goal is to be the most convenient, wholesome meal you can have in Montreal. If you live in Sud-Ouest or work in Sud-Ouest, Old Port, or downtown, we can have a meal on your desk or at home in less than 20 minutes. And one of the ways we're getting closer to this goal of being the most convenient meal is that today we launched our iPhone app. As far as I know, we're the only company where you can fire up an app, order a meal online, pay for it online on the app, and get it delivered in 20 minutes. The app is not in the App Store yet. It's still in beta. If you want access to it, I'd be happy to give you an invite. Just email me at hello@freshmin.com. hello@freshmin.com if you want to be on the iPhone beta. Thank you very much.
So we're doing things a little bit differently tonight. We have a special host, and his name is Antoine Niva. A round of applause for Antoine. Woo! Antoine is a senior analyst at Inovia Capital. So they're the venture capitalists in Montreal. There's one of the few that we have here. And you know, when I asked Antoine, what are you interested in? He told me he's interested in mobile and enterprise SaaS apps. All right, so if you're a startup and you're building mobile apps or enterprise SaaS apps, definitely stick around afterwards. Antoine will be here. Come talk to him if you're looking for venture capital. And one more round of applause for Antoine. All right, so we have a tradition at Startup Grind. Everybody stands up. Yes, I know I just asked you to sit down. I know, but believe me, this is a tradition that we do every single time. And it's really important. It is really important, believe me. All right, you guys ready? You want in on the secret now? Okay. Let's give a big round of applause for Dax Da Silva, our host tonight, really loudly. So Dax Da Silva is the creative mind behind Lightspeed. They are Montreal's startup unicorn. Probably the first startup, all right, that's gonna become $1 billion startup in Montreal. They are our first unicorn. So very excited that you're here tonight. Thank you, Antoine, for getting the connection together. And just tell you a little bit more about Lightspeed. Lightspeed builds a retail tool suite for store owners, for pretty much anyone who's running a retail store of some kind. And restaurants. Wow. And so under Dax's leadership, Lightspeed now has 20,000 retailers. That's insane. That's awesome. For a Montreal startup, that's amazing, right? Okay, no one's impressed by the 20,000? All right, okay, all right. Well, maybe this next number will get you more excited. They process $7.5 billion in retail money in a year. That's impressive. That's awesome. All right. Without further ado, I'm going to give the mic to Antoine, who's going to get this interview started.
All right. What an intro. Okay, Dax, why don't we start by just learning a little bit about your story before starting Lightspeed, kind of your journey, what did you study, where did you come from, what kind of led you to start this whole journey?
Yeah, well, first I want to thank Startup Grind. This is so much fun. Give yourselves a round of applause. This is
Yeah, big warm of applause for Rami and the whole Startup Grind team.
So what led to the starting of Lightspeed? So I guess I moved here from Vancouver 2001. Me and a bunch of buddies wanted to have more fun in our lives. So we headed east here to Montreal, and I had always done software since I was 13, always had been a Mac fanatic. Better? Yeah. So I'd always been kind of a Mac, I'd been a Mac fanatic since I was 13. I was working for a developer at that age and had built software all through my teens for the forestry companies in BC, for the Mac dealerships. So it's kind of in that ecosystem, writing code. I was really passionate about interfaces and so on. So when I came to Montreal, I worked as on-the-road tech support for a Mac dealership here. And they couldn't really send me on the road because I didn't speak any French. So the dealership asked me to build some software to run the stores. And so it was kind of a big ask.
but essentially I had done similar types of systems. It took about 2.5 years to build, and then a very, very messy divorce took down the whole company in about a 2-week span. What happened next is basically all of the people from that company went to other dealerships, and they all wanted the product. Now, of course, I didn't own the product, so I had to start from scratch. And that's how Lightspeed was born. And when rebuilding it, I knew kind of all the things not to do from the first experience, and basically kind of installed it in a spa, in a furniture store, in a computer store, in a interior design company. So a couple of different kinds of verticals, just to make sure that what was the early version of Lightspeed could be super flexible and super malleable, and we could grow with it.
You studied history and art, right?
Religious studies and art, yeah.
Have you ever thought about what you could have been doing if you didn't start Lightspeed?
Probably cult leader. I don't know. No, actually, I did really love the religious studies part of my education. I did a year of computer science. I was terrible, and I did really enjoy the liberal arts. I think it's a great way to kind of expand your horizons and so on. And I think if I wasn't doing Lightspeed, I really do love product management. Now that Lightspeed's at a size where we have real product managers, I think that's conceiving of a product, thinking about the market for it and the fit. I think that's I can ask Frankie. That's where I spend most of my time, is with the product people, and that's kind of where I'd be. Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about growth and growing a company without being a venture-backed company, and then after taking venture capital investment. So Lightspeed will celebrate its 10-year anniversary next year. It's not a lot of companies have been celebrating 10 years anniversaries. If you look at the data, it's actually pretty rare. Can you just share what was different from the time you were kind of doing the company by yourself and starting it from your own studio in Montreal up to the point where you took venture capital money?
Yeah, so we didn't have venture money until 7 years in. I think that we, Lightspeed's always been a very design-focused company, and we've always been really proud of being able to build through our own sales, through our own steam, and so that was very much a part of the culture. I think that we sold our beta. We were pretty shameless. We really wanted to make sure that we were able to build something from our own efforts. And it's not always, not every type of startup has a piece of software they can sell immediately for $3,000 to $5,000, which we did, and it kept us alive. It kept us going to trade shows in the early days. It helped us hire staff. But I think 7 years in, when Excel came to us, and later Inovia, they saw a real company with real revenues and real customers. It was about 7,000 stores at the time. Now we're 3 times more. 3 years later, 21,000, and so they knew that there was a kind of a proven way for us to grow with some investment. But I think that the early days they were a lot of fun. We wouldn't have been able to do it without really great distribution. We had a reseller network that was Apple dealers that were our original 100 set of customers. And so they went out and started to sell Lightspeed to clothing stores and to electronic stores and all sorts of other types of stores. And so we kind of really lucked out with that kind of dynamic. And they multiplied the number of salespeople we had for us.
Do you still manage that relationship with channel partners? How has it changed? You guys had you kind of outsource the sales to these guys, and how did these guys help you guys grow up to that point? And
so it has changed. We have we just did actually a roadshow because we have a new restaurant product that we launched in October, so we did a roadshow. We used to do these big cert camps Well, we still do, but we did in year 2 when we were like 6, 7 people, we did a CERT camp and had 43 people come from all over the world to get trained on selling Lightspeed. So, we really kind of made them our extended family, and that grew to hundreds of people coming to these camps. And it's changed a little bit because, as things have gone more to the cloud, there's a little bit less for a reseller to do unless they change the type of services they're offering. They used to do a lot of installation and support and servers and things that now with cloud-based solutions, it's different services that they have to offer, and our sales team's become super metrics driven, and a reseller can't really compete with what we do internally in our sales engine. So we're using them in a different way because, Lightspeed solutions are the deeper, more complex solutions for retailers and restaurants. And so that integration partner is still super important to design the workflows, to set up, it's different hardware now. It's 3G backup, it's routers like Swarm to count people as they come in and out. Other integrations like, Chrono Golf guys are here to help that plug into to our system. So it's the reseller relationship's changed. Yeah.
So when you guys received your first VC money back in July 2012, you were about 50 employees.
Yeah.
About half the size of what the business is today.
Yeah, we're 250 now. So it's
how did that change how you run the company? How did it affect the pace of growth you've been living, and kind of like how you've been managing the company from that point?
Yeah, it was a huge adjustment, So now, you grow 7 years, kind of doing things your own weird way, and it's growing and it's working. But then I think that when you have a VC like Excel come in and look at your processes, and they're working with the best companies, there's lots of things they can point out, there's lots of upgrades you need to make in terms of systems and processes and the kinds of teams that you have, et cetera. And I think that, we did it really, we had to move really quickly on a lot of them. But I think that within a year, I think it took a year for us to kind of get ourselves upgraded to a place where, where our investors were like, okay, now you guys can actually, we didn't even spend them any of the capital in the first year. It was only until year 1 that we did our first acquisition of Merchant OS that we actually dipped into the capital. So it was really kind of like that 1 year of like getting us to scale, to build a good foundation and build out these teams.
I'm sure when we read TechCrunch headlines and we see a company like you guys in Montreal raising 30 and then another $35 million of money, is it all looks like a flawlessly executed success story, and everything is shiny and bright.
Well, ask these guys.
Yeah. Can you share horror stories with the audience here? Times where you thought, okay, we're screwed, this is not going to work, or where kind of panic hit you, I think, how you dealt with that.
So I think that there's 10 crises that happen in a day and probably 2 good things. And I think that it can look pretty, we're doing PR when we're trying to show the best face, but I think that the people that are on our team, because we're growing quickly and because things are moving fast, I think everybody accepts a degree of chaos. I think that, a recent example, we've sold, since we did the acquisition and launched Lightspeed Cloud, now called Lightspeed Retail, a year ago, we've onboarded literally thousands and thousands of new cloud customers, and this is our first peak retail period with all of these customers all wanting support and all wanting to do things all at the same time. So it's just there's always something, where the amount that we've grown and do we have the systems and the people and everything to scale with it? There's a million things that we learn from every day and then prepare, and analyze and look at data and we know we have to do better and usually quickly come up with a fix.
So you mentioned that acquisition you did back in the summer of last year, right?
Yeah.
So just to give you a little bit of background, Lightspeed was their flagship product was an on-premise Mac-reliant product, and you guys went out and bought that company that is doing a cloud product, so device agnostic across multi-platform. What was the rationale at the time, and how did you feel about potentially cannibalizing the whole business you've been building for the previous 7 years? Like, how did you manage the whole process?
Well, we have like we have a really fantastic sales leader in JP, and one thing that we noticed is that we were saying no to a lot of people that were coming into our pipeline because we didn't have a cloud offering, and so we wanted to be able to say yes, to everybody, and so. We were concerned, and we did do projections of one business cannibalizing the other. But the reality of what happened is that it doubled the business. There was people that came to us and wanted. We have a lead gen process where we kind of filter people to the right product by asking questions, and some people want something on site, and some people want something in the cloud, and I think it really just increased the number of people we could say yes to. Over time, I think we've realized that some of those customers like the product that they're on, and like for example, the people that are on the Mac on-premise product, they like to see new cloud services, like we're offering them mobile dashboards and things like web store, that are cloud-based. But they're pretty happy with the system that they have, and like migrating everybody to one platform is something that might happen over time, but rather than cannibalize, I think it's really added. Mm-hmm. It's been additive.
Totally. So now you've raised another $35 million of funding from us at Inovia and Axel again.
Yeah.
You made another acquisition in the restaurant vertical. So, can you share a bit of what's next for you guys in the next couple of years?
I mean, so restaurants was another thing that where we said no to a lot of people that came to us that wanted a deep Lightspeed solution, and we were saying no, we're not going into that. We're that's too far in terms of where development could go with one product. So we decided to get a really focused, amazing restaurant product with founders that were very like-minded in Belgium, which is a lot like Quebec. In many great ways, and our team and their team get along super well, just like the guys on the West Coast. So what's next? I think we've got an amazing retail platform and an amazing restaurant platform, and there's now lots of cool things we can do over time. Like right now, where I think we're just getting organized, but over time, there's we've got a Lightspeed payments platform that can work across. We'd like to do loyalty programs that people that go shopping. They're gonna go for dinner in the same neighborhood, and those are hopefully going to be we want to be the operating system for Main Street. So a loyalty program from Lightspeed could be something very unique, where we have the best of retailers, the best inventory-based retailers, and some of the best restaurants, and bars and nightclubs for later. So yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about company culture, but maybe before we do that, I wonder if we can maybe take a question in the room about the growth section of Lightspeed, the growth story. If there's something that you want to highlight from what's been said so far.
Well, my name is Joe, and I'm curious to hear a little bit more about, it sounds like you had a bit of a transition from working with resellers before and maybe less so now. What kinds of margins did you have to surrender to them at the time, and if they're still a part of your business model, what's their incentive today to stay on with the company? Yeah,
so I think before, so the history with our resellers is that they were our reseller network was like our original customers. So it was like a lot of Mac dealers and Mac consultants, and so they were very used to. Buying products and selling that product at a markup and services, and that worked really well with our on-premise installed software. So 25%, yeah, and but the 25% was it was significant, but not. But compared to all of the things that they would add to it, that could make, each installation could be a 20 to 30K sale, of which Lightspeed might be 5. 3 to 5. So for them, each one was a big opportunity. Now they have to kind of think in a different way, because if they sell Lightspeed, all of our products are subscription based. Now they can still sell a year up front or several years up front and take some of that commission right off the bat. But many customers want to go monthly, and we will give that reseller a residual and a payments residual. And so resellers have to think a little bit more long term. They're going to have to manage their cash in a different way, and they're going to have to they're going to have to be creative on services. They're not installing servers anymore. They're not going to have that type of business. So some resellers haven't been able to make the leap in that way, because at their core, they're kind of like server manager type consultants, or
Resellers just didn't want to buy something, sell something.
Yeah.
I think what I heard you say is you migrated away from selling a box product.
they're less resellers. Yeah, and now they're more consultants. Yeah, and I think a lot of them that do need to have that cash upfront component, like we'll sell a year subscription and take that component upfront and find ways to package in their support package and other setup fees and training and all that kind of thing. But I mean, I think that takes an evolution of the way that they do business. And a lot of them are doing fantastic. I think there's some resellers that it's been a harder leap. And then there's the other element of for us. There were people that were really Mac diehards that loved the platform because they were Mac purists, and a cloud-based system just doesn't get their juices going in the same way. Even if we do the most beautiful iOS app, they're just not quite as passionate, and there's not much we can do about the world changing, So, but I think the resellers that get it are doing great, and the best ones are adding development services. They're using our API and building on top, and those are the ones that are really doing amazing. Yeah.
Cool, thanks. So on company culture, I think, too often maybe in the startup world, when we talk about company culture, people confuse culture and company perks.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I talk about you guys, whether people know Lightspeed, they often say, oh, those are the guys that have a swimming pool at the offices. Although they do have a swimming pool at the offices, can you explain a little bit what culture means at Lightspeed and why it is so important at the speed you're growing and for what you're doing these days?
Yeah. I think that many of you are founders and starting companies, and I think one of the things that you realize, for better or for worse, is that the culture of the company is really it's kind of an imprint of your own DNA. So everything that you're good at and everything that you're bad at gets imprinted into the company. And so I think that part of the way that I work, for better or for worse, is the way that filters down to how people treat each other and so on. And so one of the ways that I work that has worked is I do give people a lot of responsibility over their own areas. People do feel like owners at Lightspeed, and they drive their own initiative, and they don't need a lot of there's no babysitting going on, because everybody's a real contributor, and in the areas where I'm not great, we've tried to hire people who are excellent, like we've got people that take care of, like, I can't read barely read a balance sheet, so we've got Dave, and so and for sales we've got JP and Denise. I don't think about these areas of the business. They're just they're really, really well run. So I think it's like accountability, like the culture of our company is that there's real ownership at every level, and that's just one of the elements that we've identified. But I think there's also, a little bit of it's Montreal, where this is definitely, even though we're in 6 cities, this is definitely like our spiritual center. The kind of the offbeat kind of very creative, very design oriented. That's definitely in the DNA of the company. You can see that, and even when we have other offices, you see that kind of reflected.
Yeah. So we have a few of our founders' quotes on posters in our offices at Inovia. The one we have from you says, company culture is not an HR function, it comes from the top. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So like I said, I mean, it's a little bit like the things that you set forth in the company, the examples that you said, and the things that the way that you relate to people. People do watch you, you know. Like, so senior members of the company are watched. If you walk around panicking all day, because there are things that go wrong every single day. If you walk around panicking all day, everybody's going to be freaked out. You know, if you allow people to yell at each other when things get heated, then that's the culture you've created. You know, and so you have to set an example, and people will follow it. And I think that the ownership, people taking ownership is I think something that you can set at the top and have people do. One of the things that we always say is we want people to do the best work of their lives at Lightspeed. And that's something I want for myself. I want to be able to be challenged in everything that I do, and I want that for my employees, you know. And so I think that filters down that willingness for us all to do something excellent.
Yeah. So I was talking to GP, who is your CRO and is running sales at Lightspeed, about the latest numbers from the last quarters, and I was asking him, what's the secret weapon? Like, how you guys do that, and like what it takes to work in sales at Lightspeed, what's the culture like in sales? And he was like, have you seen the movie The Wolf of Wall Street? And when he saw me, he was like, no, I'm talking about like a very specific scene, not the whole movie. But
Yeah.
We're not like doing crazy stuff like that, but like just that specific scene about people being in that room, kind of pushing each other, you know, on the phone all the time, kind of like going through hardship together, and then going, you know, party all together to celebrate the good times.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about that? Like, what does work hard, play hard means at Lightspeed, and to what extreme you guys are using that motto?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely. I think it's a company of super driven people. But it's also it's a company that really does know how to have fun. So I think that's, you know, you do bring in people into the company that have an element of you, and I think that the people that do the hiring, people like Addie and the HR team, bring in people that are going to all gel together, and I think that's why, you know, we all do work hard together, but we all know, you know, when the time comes that we hit a record month or we're having our holiday party, we're gonna enjoy that to the max and hopefully don't drown in that pool.
And trust me, they know to party. They know how to party. There's always music, by the way, in your offices. Whenever
There is
we come
always
back.
music, yeah.
Is that also part of like how you guys work? Is it something that?
Yeah, I think there's got to be ambiance. Like, I think that's part of the not every team likes it. You know, like I know the developers prefer more quiet. I mean, the sales team always has music going. Depends, but I think that, you know, part of your responsibility as a founder is to create a vibe and an ambiance and just I guess a culture, you know, and so that is definitely part of our culture.
Totally. Do you think your investors should share some of that cultural fit with you as well? Like, how did you go about like finding your investors, and did you share a playlist or anything?
So do we share what?
Music playlist or something like that?
So John Locke, who from Excel, I've been to concerts with, and the first his very first visit to Montreal, we went on a 5-bar crawl. So I don't know if that was a test to figure out.
I told you they know how to party.
You know, we just and I don't think I would do that with Ryan Sweeney, our other partner, but I think you know, there was definitely this like a certain connection and magic that we had with the Excel guys, and then with your team as well. You know, like I think we're like-minded, and I think it helps because we can. We don't have any investors that aren't afraid to tell us, you know, when we're not doing well, or when we're not measuring up. But it helps to know that because you relate to people on that kind of level, you know, when you're doing something right or when they have advice, you know the place where it comes from. I think it's like it's not a necessity to be buddies with your investor, but I think it definitely brings in a level of honesty, that I think really benefits them and yourself. And if you end up in a position where nobody's happy, then it's more constructive, to find a way out of that together.
It's a question of shared values more than
that's a good point.
working together every day and everything like that. Okay. What are some of Lightspeed values? Can you share?
Lightspeed values. So I think that some of the cultural value. I should have reread the values, but they are they are
Sorry,
like
I didn't prep that one.
they are there's the ownership value. There's the weirdness value. There's the integrity. Yeah, I think there's some basic things that we tried to boil down our values. We did an exercise last year where we tried to identify what is unique about our culture. Why does it feel like when we hire new people that they fit? What are those unsaid things? And I think it's really interesting to kind of pick those out and I can honestly say that the kinds of people that we have in the company today, like people have come and gone for the most part. A lot of original people are still with us, but the new people at the company have the same spark as the original people in the company. So I think we're doing a great job of making sure that the people that we invite into the family are like-minded.
Maybe we can take a question on that piece on culture if there's one. And don't worry, we're going to open for questions afterward as well, so you're going to have another chance.
I know you spoke about how the kind of quirky creativeness of Montreal affects the way you work at Lightspeed. What sort of challenges are specific to Montreal that you've had to deal with, and how did you do that?
I don't know. Personally, I'm a very optimistic person about the city. I mean, I only see really the good things. I mean, there's tons of challenges in the city, but for me, it's all of the creativity. It's all of the cultural tensions that create all of this uniqueness, And I think that there's definitely the ability for us to have really great, educated, smart, creative people, and we're able to pay them a great wage, and they're able to live a great lifestyle in this city, And I think that's part of the great thing, What are the downsides? I don't know. Our weather. I mean, I don't. I'm from Vancouver, where it's like one rainy season. So I like the seasons. I guess my main complaint would be other people complaining about the weather.
Can you share that story about Dave, who was their CFO, that they recruited in the summer, and he thought that Montreal was like Palo Alto before his first winter?
Well, Dave's interview was interesting. We're in Old Montreal, and we were. There was a strong smell of gasoline coming from my car, and I'm smoking, and he's freaking out because it's his interview. And we found out that when the Excel guys had visited us last, I had run out of gas, and there was an empty gas can leaking in the back of the car. And so here's me and Dave pouring this. He's like, "Why isn't this igniting?" And so the moral of the story is that liquid gasoline doesn't light; it has to be vaporous. but yeah, no, we trick a lot of people by inviting them here in the summer. There's a whole list of people that we've recruited in the summer. during festival season, we take them to Arcade Fire in the park and.
Do they leave afterward?
No. Then they're ingrained and indoctrinated.
Another question on culture.
A while back, I heard you speak at Startup Weekend, and you were talking about the A-player reference, where like hire A players.
Yeah.
And it seems you've really done that because Lightspeed's done amazing. But I was curious as to what exactly is your definition of an A player, and how do you screen for that?
Yeah. So there's that quote, and I don't know who's responsible. Maybe
SJ.
Yeah, Steve Jobs. Yeah, A players hire A players, and B players hire C players. How do we do that? Well, I have people like Addy to help me. I think it's I mean, it's hard to know, and an A player for Lightspeed might be not great at another company, and there could be a person that doesn't perform well for us and our needs that does great elsewhere, and maybe in a smaller company or maybe a corporate environment, So I think it's about fit. Sometimes it just comes down to talent and comes down to what level we need them to operate at. So I think it is identifying who's an A player for you. And sometimes a resume and an impression and you think you've hired an A player and you realize down the road that it's not going to be what you thought it was, And I think that as long as you're gracious and as long as I don't think I've ever had anybody part from the company on bad terms. I think we've always been super adult about it, and I don't think anybody wants to look back on their experience with us negatively, and I think that always works in our favor. We have to treat every situation with integrity. But finding those A players, there's no recipe for that. I think there's great HR. I think the strategic value of HR and that team is allowing them to kind of use their intuition and getting really great people in that team makes a huge difference. Yeah.
Okay, let's jump a little bit about your market, retail. If you look at everything that's happening around you, you have Apple that is launching Apple Pay. You have Amazon that is getting into the POS market for brick and mortar retailers. You have Shopify as well that was doing like pure e-commerce web store and now like has its own brick and mortar solution.
Yep.
Square is over there, raised over $500 million. Vend and Shop came in kind of like more direct competitors of yours and like raised also in the $20+ million of money. How do you sleep at night?
Xanax. Yeah. I think it's always great to have, through our history we've always had strong competitors. I think right now we have really well-funded competitors. We have great funding too. I think that what's happening in retail and in restaurant and in commerce in general is that there's just this huge transformation happening. People are going from an older style of doing business to this connected world where consumers have the edge over the merchant in terms of knowledge on their cell phone. They can compare. They can buy from Amazon. They can So I think that if you walk down the street and look at the systems that people are using, I'm not seeing me or our competitors. I'm seeing a lot of old thinking and legacy, and I think there's tons of opportunity for us all to find our own play. I think that our own biggest enemy is executing on our own plan. And I think that I don't think it's the right or wrong ideas. It's us and our teams like doing it well. And I think that we're there on some products, we're behind on others of initiatives that we want to do. And I think it's just execution and being the best for us, being the best Lightspeed we can be. That's gonna lead us to lead us to success. If we look at the number of stores that we have, 21,000, and if you look at some of the other competitors, they've got 8 or 9 or 10. That's a drop in the bucket when you look at the retailers around the world. It's not a fight to the death with those guys. I think we've all got tons of runway. Yeah.
So you talk about sometimes the 3D experience of a store.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that and like your vision about retail, where it's going, and what's kind of the next generation retailers are kind of wanting to get from you guys?
Well, I think like Mark Andreessen famously quoted that the brick and mortar retail was dead. And I think that's really far from the truth. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to live in cities where there's no retail. We already have lost bookstores and music stores and video stores and I think that people, the reality is like brands like Apple, like brands like Frank & Oak, brands like Bonobos, like online brands that don't need to open stores, even Amazon and eBay, they are opening stores. Yeah. Warby Parker, Birchbox, they're all opening stores. Why are they opening stores? Because the brand, you can't, you can only emotionally connect with a brand best in 3D. You know, so it's that brand narrative. Like, what does the brand feel like and mean? That's best told in a 3D store. Now, that doesn't mean that you can ignore e-commerce. You know, you've got to continue the conversation with the customer online, and you've got to continue the. You've got to draw them back into the store by updating your e-commerce, showing them your new curation, showing them what are the drivers to come back and visit you again, and you've got to make that in-store experience memorable so that they do want to come back. I could easily buy an iPad online, but I go into the Apple store and I expect a certain efficiency, but I also expect to see, touch and feel the products. I get something out of that, and I do make the trip, and I do park on St. Catharines, which is a nightmare, to do it. So, there's something very vital about 3D brick and mortar retail that we all love, and it's like that. Also, the thrill of the hunt and scoring a great product, find in a store. But the reality for retailers is that they have to. Their expectations on them is much higher. They have to be great at the in-store. They've got to be great online. They've got to be, they've got to know everything about their customer. They've got to personalize the experience, and it's still the same. Still the same one or two people that's running the store. Maybe with a couple of assistants or associates, but the only way they're going to be able to do that and compete with Amazon and compete with the store next door is by having systems that let them do everything, that let them be kind of superhuman in a way. Mm-hmm. So we need to give them kind of big box tools that are like democratized for them and easy to navigate, so they can do all of those sales channels. So I think brick and mortar is here to stay, and if we can do anything to help it stay vital, we need to.
Yeah. And so on the opposite, do you think that pure play e-commerce, if you're not Amazon or Alibaba or one of these successful pure play e-commerce company like Zulily that are like very focused on a vertical area, do you think pure e-commerce is kind of dead, and the next generation is just e-commerce being a channel among other channels for like just a retailer?
And I think it's business strategy. I mean, there's lots of people that do great only online, and that's kind of like the nature of their business. I think that there are certain types of products and businesses. Let's say bonobos. They want to have. I think they call them guide shops, where people can come in and actually feel the materials and whatever, and get measurements done, so that they can get a good fit every time they order online. And I think that's, having both is a great strategy for them. But if they were selling something else, like if they were selling, electronics products, or, if it was a different type of retailer, maybe that wouldn't be as necessary. So I think it depends on what you're selling, and yeah.
Okay. Just before we open up for questions, maybe there was a question about the Montreal ecosystem. Maybe you can expand a little bit about that. What sort of talent you find in Montreal that is really world class, and what are like the pocket of talents where you see there are gaps locally, where you'd rather hire people down in the Valley or New York, where you have offices.
So, I mean, we have the benefit of like, we have offices here in Montreal, in Ottawa, New York, the Valley, in Santa Cruz, Washington State, and in Belgium. So we kind of know what it's like to hire in different places. And I think the positions to hire that are the most difficult are, I think, difficult everywhere. Mm-hmm. I think they're, finding great product people, finding great dev operations people, finding great, every type of talent, finding great senior support people. I think that part of the responsibility of the company is to, try to attract the best, and also to, create an environment where they can do the best work of their life. And if we fail on that, then we won't get those people, So, I think it's challenging everywhere, and the challenges will be different. Like if we tried to hire a position that was maybe more plentiful in the Valley, we might pay, twice the price, and that person might not live twice the lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And so, I think part of the answer is mentoring great people. So having great leaders in the company that can help people develop in their career and turn them into good employees, and also to do your best as a company to attract the best people in the city. I mean, there are 3.5 million people here. So.
If you have your resume ready, by the way, and you can fill a position, you know who to talk to. Okay, we're going to open up for questions. We have about 10 minutes left.
Yeah, you were saying that you moved from developing to become like running the entire business. And I guess most of us here are like at the very beginning of of the runway you had. So how did you do the move from actually building the product, something
it's a good question.
you love or whatever, to actually managing and seeing it grow, but not yourself? Like.
So I built the first 2 versions of Lightspeed, and when I stopped doing that, when we hired real engineers and they were like, stop coding, because we don't want to see any more of this. I think the decision was made for me, but it was really tough because I didn't feel like I was doing real work. Even though nobody wanted to see my code, it didn't feel like I was doing anything in a day. Now I know that's not true, but I probably stopped coding in like 2009 or 2010, so not super long ago. But yeah, I think one of the things that I observed in a lot of companies that when we started, there was some companies I really looked up to that helped us, that were really founder driven, and the founders were very technical and did a lot of the coding, and they never were able to make that leap, and the companies more or less faded away. So if you can't make the leap to really being the leader of the group and not the head coder, I think it's great. Like, I mean, there's founders like Mark Zuckerberg that still code, and I think that's part of their culture, and it's great. Just nobody wants me to code anymore. It's sad.
Hi. I was wondering, seeing as you have offices all across North America and now Europe, how do you guys manage a multi-location, multicultural, and sometimes multi-language team?
Yeah. So I think we've always been fairly distributed. Like we had an Ottawa office pretty early on. I think we like to have people working in the office. We don't do a lot of telecommuting. We like to have people together. So we just make sure that there's good video conference between places. That there's good ways for people to keep in touch, communicate. The developers use the Atlassian suite of products and to keep on track. And so we are able to configure groups of teams virtually. And it's challenging. And even now in Montreal, we're split in 3 different offices until we move into our new office in March. And it's frustrating some days where you have to trudge through the snow to the dev loft, or back and forth. And it's it will be great to have all of the Montreal team at least all together, and I think some of them haven't even met each other. So, but distribution is it's got its own challenges, and I think the thing that's encouraging is if I go out to Santa Cruz, you always worry about these teams that are so far away, but then when you see people that really love the company and that really that have their own little culture and appreciate being a part of the bigger thing, it reassures you that even though you worry about these distributed teams and so on, that they don't feel a part of something, that if you create the right culture and put in the right leaders and create enough communication, then people can be happy in a satellite office and not feel left out. Yeah.
I was wondering, in your opinion, how you see the future in the payments industry? What will be the next big thing? Do you prepare for that, or you just wait that the market is there and after you'll figure out what is the solution?
Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of skipped on the whole digital wallet thing. Everybody was integrating with Google Wallet and Square Wallet and all these different wallets, and we had all these propositions. And PayPal had some crazy thing that nobody used. So there's all sorts of people trying to do outdo the credit card, which still pretty much works. You know, I think Apple Pay has a great potential for being something that actually might be better and more convenient than a credit card. I know that the US is a little bit behind Canada in terms of chip and pin and EMV and that kind of security. They're doing a big changeover next year. So, you know, part of the challenge is like having options that incorporate all of these things and not betting on the wrong things. I think that chip and pin EMV is a reality that will happen, and I think that not everybody will have an iPhone 6 or a like device, you know. So I don't think the credit card's going away. I think that there will be chips in the U.S., and I think that NFC/Apple Pay is going to be probably the best way to pay going forward, the best experience at least. Bitcoins, I think we'll let others kind of pioneer there. I don't know who uses Bitcoin here. Okay. How often? Once a year. Okay. Monthly or weekly? Okay. More and more? Interesting. Okay. Well, we'll keep that on our radar. Yeah.
Did you ever have to outsource, or are you in full control of your business all the time? For example, are you managing your cloud clusters internally, or you're outsourcing it to a third party?
No, we've worked with other companies. I think we've worked with CloudOps in the past for cloud services. We work with iWeb locally. There's certain things that we will never outsource. Like from the very beginning, we always had a design team. So we've never really outsourced design. Although now that we're getting bigger, we will outsource some content writing and there are. What else have we? We have never outsourced tech support. Because of the complexity of our products, I think people really want a real specialist, not somebody just to read from an answer sheet. So, but I think that there's been elements of development that we've outsourced, but not really at the moment for dev.
Yeah, what metrics did you track initially to verify your success, and then how did that change over the years, particularly with the addition of venture capital?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So, I think that in that first year after getting venture capital money, we became aware of all these metrics that we never even dreamed of. And I'm not that type of person. I think that's another thing is like company culture comes from the top. Like all the things that you're inclined to do, happen. Not being a super metrics driven person, now I have really great data driven, metrics driven people around me, and we're required to track all these numbers. Now we live and die by lots of different metrics. So there's things like MRR, and there's things like NPS, and all these great three-letter acronyms that we are very on top of. But I mean, initially, I think I think we're pretty old school in terms of like, what's the next record month? Like we're pretty excited to see growth month over month, year over year, customer count, and we never really had a sense of churn before because it was an on-premise product, people's maintenance could lapse, but they might renew a year later when they needed tech support, so they hadn't really churned, So now that things are SaaS based and now it's everything, the world's become more metrics driven because of the way business is done and software sold, and so that's been part of the process in the last 2 years since we moved everything to subscription. Yeah. Like implementation time? So yeah, so like, yeah. So and that's part of the reason why like the resellers have had to really change their model, because there is no server to set up. There is no, there is still hardware and there is still challenges with setting up receipt printers, and you can ask JD here what it's like to set up some of these devices on for a cloud-based system for printer scanners, swipers, all these kinds of things. So yeah, I think there was more initial setup. I think the workflows are still complex if you're doing inventory-based retail. There's still a lot of training. You still kind of when you are setting up a new store, a lot of people that open businesses, whether it's retail or restaurant, they go into that because they have a passion for the merchandise or a passion for they don't necessarily know about business all the time, and so part of what we help do and what the reseller helps do is kind of like get them into best practices. So that hasn't really changed. I think we still have to help people know how to do purchasing, know how to do receiving, know how to get their inventory in properly, plus help them get hardware set up and things like that. But the complexity of servers and upgrading servers and all of that is kind of more or less in the past. So there's that's been taken out of the equation.
All right, any final words from both of you?
Thanks a lot, Dax. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, round of applause for Dax and Antoine. So don't leave just yet. What we're going to do is the volunteers are going to move the chairs to the walls, and the music is going to get started. So if you're interested in talking to Antoine or Dax, they will be hanging around for a few more minutes, probably 30 more minutes, right? Yes. Thank you so much for being here tonight.